Hi, I'm Atika Farooqui. Someone said, I'm writing my story so that others might see fragments of themselves. Someone said, my world is not spectacle and explosion, it's two people talking. Actually, this was said by Oscar-nominated director Taika Waititi. The creation of a single world comes from a huge number of fragments and chaos. And with all of my work, it always takes a while for people to get it. It goes from, what the hell is that? To, oh, I like that, said Ryan Murphy. Let's put the spotlight on writers today, the ones who create characters, make story arcs, give the story a climax that you keep thinking of. To discuss life, work, perks and challenges of being a writer, today I have Atika Chauhan, writer of Guilty, Chappak, Arya that has just done the rounds at Cannes, Sahela that is doing rounds at international film festivals and many more. Ishita Moitra, who just got nominated at the Filmfare Award for her dialogues in Rani Ki Prem Kahani, and other works include Test Case, Four More Shots Please, Shakuntala Devi, and Singh Choudhary, writer of Arya, All Seasons, Grahan, Scoop, Sajni Shinde ka viral video, and lots more. Welcome, you bright minds. How are you doing?
Very happy to be here.
Thank you.
It feels so like happy. A baptism of sorts, like now we are in the Atika Farooqui show.
Come on, Miss Chauhan.
Thank you for having us, seriously.
My pleasure, my pleasure. I have loved your work. Atika, yours, Anu and Ishita. Let me first start by asking you, why writing, and is this your first profession?
Do you want to take it first?
You? Sure.
It is my second profession. I used to be a journalist. Before this, I was I worked as a news producer for about a few years. And actually, I only maybe around 28 or 29 figured that maybe fiction writing is it for me. But once वो लत एक बार लगी, उसके बाद, I mean, फिर कोई, there was, after that एक ही चीज़ कर रहे हैं. So now consistently doing this for 15th year. So yes.
And Atika saved up on a lot of money to go to FTI and come back and start her career in writing.
I had to take a loan from the company that I worked with, and I'm really grateful to them. And it was a bit of a sabbatical. फिर मैंने loan चुका के वो पैसे वापस किए. मेरे पास FTI जाने तक के भी पैसे नहीं थे. But I'm really grateful कि कुछ लोगों को मैं बेवकूफ़ बना पाई उस time पे, who really believed कि actually मेरे में talent है, क्योंकि I don't think मेरे पास talent का टी था तब, especially when I read what I used to write that time. I was like, oh God, I was horrible. But you know, so I guess it, you know, कुछ कैसे भी करके टिकटॉक लगा के finally here.
Wow.
And still like, you know, sort of like finding my path.
Anu, let me begin with you.
I actually have had multiple careers before becoming a screenwriter. But there's a particular incident that happened in 2015. Actually, I was in Nepal covering Nepal earthquake for Deutsche Welle, for which I used to freelance as a reporter. And that was the moment when I realized, the first realization that I'm done with reporting journalism now. There's too much heartbreak, too much manipulation that happens in the format, that sometimes news gathering also has become some sort of way of manipulating information and playing with the minds of the audience. So that was the moment that I decided that enough of journalism. Now I'll move on to fiction writing, which I feel now, and I'm very grateful for the opportunities that I got. I feel like it's closer to reality now. Strangely, fiction is much closer to reality than news today.
And Anu has been a Ramnath Goenka awardee. That's like one of the biggest awards in the field of journalism, and she's worked with HarperCollins for a really long time as a consulting editor.
That's correct.
And now she's known best for her work in Arya, All Seasons. And Ishita, I loved how you created Arya in Rani Ki Prem Kahani. That was one spunky woman we had waited for a long time to see on screen. And congratulations for your nomination at the Filmfare.
Thank you, thank you. I can't take credit for creating that character just by myself. There was a writing team, then there was also Karan sir, and then of course Arya, who breathed life into Rani. Did my masters from MCRC. I did my masters in mass communication. While I was studying there, it kind of crystallized for me that what I want to do is script writing in Hindi films. And my true love is like watching like absolutely hardcore masala Bollywood movies, which I've grown up on. And मतलब एक I come from an army background, तो कभी वो थोड़ा guilty pleasure हुआ करता था, फिर बड़े होते होते वो सिर्फ pleasure बन गया, and then I made it eventually अब वो मेरा काम है. So after that I was fairly young when I moved to Bombay. अभी उस बात को 17 साल हो गए, अब तब से यही कर रही हूँ. So
I'm remembering a nice couplet that goes exactly fits you well. क्या था वो आतिका? किसी को घर से निकलते ही मिल गई मंजिल, कोई हमारी तरह उम्र भर सफर में रहा.
I mean, I think I am an example of that because for me, commercial cinema is learned behavior. Actually, for me, I was crazy about films, but I always मुझे खुद बिल्कुल नहीं पता था कि जो मुझे करना है और जो जिसके लिए मेरा इतना दिल धड़क रहा है उसमें पैसे कैसे कमाए जाएंगे.
And you're saying that as you co-wrote Chappak with Meghna Gulazar with Deepika Padukone, and I loved the spirit of that film because the underlying spirit and the subtext of that film is that no matter what happens in your life, you must march on.
She basically he's very upset with them कि तुम पार्टी कर रहे हो, दारू नहीं लाए. So she takes on behalf of the group who is partying, she basically kind of like takes power back and says आपको ऐसा लगता है कि एसिड आप पे फेंका है, बट एक्चुअली एसिड मुझ पे फेंका है और मुझे पार्टी करनी है. सो बेसिकली शी काइंड ऑफ लाइक owns her narrative in that sense, and she does it in a very gentle, skillful way. So
wow, and this is so important for a land that has kind of popularized the lines कि जो अब किए हो दाता ऐसा न कीजो, अगले जन्म में मोहे बिटिया न कीजो. Such a pessimistic version, and here you are who says that मुझे पार्टी करनी है.
हर जन्म में बिटिया ही कीजो.
बिटिया ही कीजो. Okay, now tell me that one day when you realized and you thought that wow, the reason why I'm in the field of writing has come true. What a day. Just visualize that day for us.
मेरे लिए it was the day after Rocky और Rani released. It was like a dream. जो ख्वाब देखा था जिस दिन बॉम्बे आई थी, मुंबई, जिस दिन कदम रखा था कि इस तरीके की फिल्म लिखूंगी, वो रोम कॉम होगी, उसमें बड़े स्टार्स होंगे, करण जौहर बनाएंगे, मतलब जो सपने लिए थे, देखे थे. But I mean, I didn't really know that it would actually come true one day. बट जिस दिन वो रिलीज हुई उस दिन तो बहुत एंग्जाइटी थी कि पता नहीं क्या होगा. बट अगले दिन जब रिव्यूज आने लगे तो मुझे लगा कि चलो कुछ तो सही हुआ है इसमें. बट डीएम्स आने लगे फ्रॉम द ऑडियंस एंड आई रियलाइज दैट द होल वर्ल्ड हैज वॉच्ड इट एंड सो मेनी पीपल फ्रॉम अक्रॉस द वर्ल्ड आर रीचिंग आउट, रियल मेंबर्स ऑफ द ऑडियंसेस. And I feel like that day I felt like this journey that I undertook so many years ago was worth something.
बिल्कुल मेरा एक्सपीरियंस इशिता से एकदम मतलब मिमिक करता है बिकॉज इट्स रियली लाइक जब गिल्टी लिखी थी जिस साल छपाक और गिल्टी एक साथ रिलीज हो गए थे बैक टू बैक एंड छपाक से बहुत एक्युलेट्स मिल रहे थे. देयर वाज अ लॉट ऑफ क्रिटिकल एक्लेम. बट जब गिल्टी रिलीज हुई क्योंकि वो नेटफ्लिक्स पे रिलीज हुई थी, एक धर्मा फिल्म थी, उसका जो तरीका था बताने का स्टोरी टेलिंग वो बहुत एक पॉपुलिस्ट तरीका था, मेन स्ट्रीम फिल्म थी. तो जिस तरीके का मैंने अपनी लाइफ में कभी उस तरीके की फीलिंग नहीं आई थी कि मेरा पूरा इनबॉक्स, मेरा पूरा इंस्टाग्राम और मेरा ट्विटर इट वाज फुल ऑफ डीएम्स फ्रॉम एक्चुअली women and men sharing, offloading experiences which they have gone through, where they have been wrong, how they felt called out, how they want to correct their vision, how, you know, so it was like, it wasn't one or two, it was like hundreds. And in that moment I knew कि हम जो करते हैं उसका actual resonance कहीं ना कहीं register होता है. It does not mean कि वो waste जा रहा है, because when now इस तरीके की चर्चाएं आजकल हो रही हैं कि actually सिनेमा की कोई social responsibility नहीं होती. और मैं उस स्कूल को belong नहीं करती क्योंकि मैंने actually अपने सिनेमा से वो even though मैंने उस तरीके की ambition नहीं रखी थी, but मैंने वो change देखा है.
I was, the entire family, in fact, me, my children and my husband, we were driving to the hills. My children used to study in a boarding school and we met with an accident, which was almost fatal. And that one moment when you have such a close brush with death, the first thought that came to my mind was, oh, मैं तो बिना picture लिखे मर जाऊंगी. I could have died without writing a film.
This is so Shakespearean.
And I can tell you that I was filled immediately with immense guilt. Obviously, like, you know, what am I thinking? This is my entire life. My children are with me in the car. Anything could have happened. But I'm thinking of this ambition that I have.
अंतरात्मा की आवाज.
मैं पिक्चर लिखे बिना मर जाऊंगी.
So वो अंतरात्मा की आवाज जो बिल्कुल.
Listen, you have to have this as a dialogues character in your character's dialogue in your film.
I hope I get to write that character and that kind of a film one day. But thankfully, yeah, we are living in times when such characters are being celebrated also, from Queen to now so many narratives which celebrate women breaking away from. I remember that moment, this was during COVID, that Arya had released, and I had stepped out in my balcony just to, just catch some fresh air. कोई नहीं निकल रहा था घर से, और ऐसे मैंने ऐसे देखा कि बगल के घर में टीवी चल रहा है, बड़ा सा टीवी स्क्रीन है उस पे, और उस पे आर्या देखा जा रहा है, और it's playing the credit.
Oh,
I was like, oh my God, this has happened.
Wow,
this has come true.
Yeah.
ये जो सपना देखा था वो हो गया. अच्छा, मुझे क्रेडिट मिल गया, मैंने लिख ली.
अब चैन से मर सकती हूँ.
अब मैं चैन से मर सकती हूँ. So it was that moment. Yeah.
If I were to ask you that, how do you define a successful career in writing? हमने वो कहानियाँ सुनी है कि जावेद अख्तर ने कहा कि देखिए मैं तो 3 लाख लूँगा, आपको फिल्म की स्क्रिप्ट आप पहले हाँ बोलिए तो मैं स्क्रिप्ट दिखाऊंगा. What would be those 3 to 4 things that would be of paramount importance, or the pillars of that word?
सारे फिल्मों में ऐसा एक कॉलेज का गाना होता था, आई है मतलब जिस दिन वो लड़की कॉलेज जाती थी, एंड ऑल द बॉयज यूज्ड टू बी लाइक कैट कॉलिंग एंड एवरीथिंग, एंड आई यूज्ड टू फील लाइक ओ माय गॉड, इट्स गोइंग टू बी लाइक अ वॉक ऑफ शेम, हाउ विल आई एंटर, यू नो, आई मीन, मतलब मैं क्लास तक कैसे पहुंचूंगी. जब मैं बहुत छोटी थी मुझे सच्ची में ऐसे लगता था कि स्कूल तो अच्छा है बट कॉलेज में कैसे होगा, मैं गेट से मतलब ये यहाँ से क्लास तक कैसे पहुंचूंगी, जब इतने सारे लड़के हर तरफ से गाना गा रहे होंगे और ऐसे ऐसे करे होंगे. एंड लाइक द लव फॉर हिंदी सिनेमा कंटिन्यूड, but I wanted to be able to bring this a little bit of change in it, and to see girls like me, romantic relationships like mine, girls having careers like my friends and I. This is, to me, to be able to do this, to be able to bring my voice to mainstream Hindi cinema, that to me is a success.
Actually, मेरे केस में था कि I was actually looking up for role models a lot, especially because I had to make that mid-career shift. तो I used to Google a lot and read up about a lot of women writers, and especially women screenwriters. उसमें भी there was this thing very niche in the sense that published authors who have made it big. And then when I started to look at the list of very successful literary figures, we had Rahi Masoom Raza Saab, we had a Kamleshwar, we also had Gulazar, we also had Sharad Joshi writing dialogues for films like Utsav. So all literary stalwarts. But there would be very few women in between. Like you would really have to struggle to find an Ismat Chugtai who took a break, in fact, for 15 years from the industry because she was so traumatized by the experiences that she had had. Or once in a while, there was Achla Nagar, if I remember the name correctly, who'd co-written films like Nikah, a lot of those social dramas during those times. There were so few women. So I just wanted to be that writer who was writing in Hindi primarily, because I am a Hindi writer, who's had some sort of who's also who comes from a small town, who's been a mother, who's had a very middle class life, and to be able to contribute to the narratives which go far and wide. Now, of course, the ambition has become a little bigger, that to have women headlining those, female actors headlining those kind of films and getting the kind of budgets that otherwise any A-lister male actors who is headlining that kind of film is doing. So just that's what I think that will be success
when a writer
for us.
can command a big budget film with a A-rated actor.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. You, Atika?
आई थिंक काफ़ी हद तक सिमिलर आंसर है, बट मैं बस ये कहूँगी कि आई थिंक मेरी पॉलिटिक्स मेरी क्राफ्ट से पहले फॉर्म हो गई थी, मे बी बिकॉज क्योंकि मैं एक दिल्ली की लड़की हूँ, तो ये जो एक अवेयरनेस है जो बहुत छोटे से हमारे अंदर बहुत जल्दी भर जाती है, बिकॉज यू ग्रो अप इन एन अनसेफ एनवायरनमेंट एंड यू नो कि ये कुछ तो गलत है. तो जिस तरीके से आई थिंक दैट द ओनली वे टू negotiate with with all this is not through complicity, maybe through some disruption, maybe through some resourcefulness. तो आपकी कुछ experiential reality एक होती है जो जिससे आप भर जाते हो. And I think by the time I actually was finding my voice as a writer, even as a journalist, or even as like a story writer or fiction writer, or whatever form of storytelling we may be exploring, but I think politics शायद मेरी काफी develop थी even before I started learning the craft of screenwriting. So there was in my head that in that sense there was never any confusion of मैं किस तरीके का सिनेमा करूंगी. तो बाकी कंफ्यूजन ये था कि किस तरीके से पैसे कमाएंगे, क्योंकि जिस तरीके का काम हमें करना है उसमें पैसे नहीं मिलते. So there was this मेरा कुछ 10 बार आई थिंक पहले के 10 साल उस तरीके से गए हैं कि हाउ टू अराइव एट दैट पॉइंट जहाँ पे एक where will I have that interface between the intelligent and the commercial, which is what happened with Chappak, when I managed to actually write a film for a celebrated director, जिसके अंदर एक बहुत ही बड़ी हस्ती दीपिका पादुकोण, उसको पिक्चर को उन्होंने as a producer उसमें एक्ट किया. तो वो उस वजह से जो हमें वैलिडेशन मिला, उसके बाद सब कुछ बदल गया for my career. I had read David Mamet, and I know now he is also a controversial figure when you actually go back. But I actually was like trying to understand screenwriting from people who have developed foundations of screenwriting as a craft. So I was, because मुझे ऐसा लगता था कि हिंदुस्तान में जो भी सोसाइटी रही है वो बहुत ही अनार्किक रही है, तो यहाँ पे कुछ सीखने के लिए था नहीं. There was no organized form of learning, or like it was just like something that was happening, and that is why ये सब gaze ways बोलना, ये सब शब्द actually I had understood it long early into the game कि ये सब शब्द बोल के आप basically अपने चेक को और दूर करे जा रहे हैं अपने आप. So
point taken.
So actually there was what I learned, which Ishita was also saying कि when we are constantly negotiating, we are like actually feminism कैसे बेचें बिना बोले feminism.
Right.
This was something that I had figured, क्योंकि अगर actually में rent देना है तो और अगर आप ज़्यादातर जो बहुत ही जैसे कि देखा गया है एज अ पैटर्न, हमने देखा है कि ज़्यादातर लोग जो बहुत प्रिंसिपल रहते हैं या आइडियलिस्ट रहते हैं या इवन लिबरल्स, वो काफ़ी हद तक अच्छे घरों से भी आते हैं जहाँ पे उनके एटलीस्ट बेसिक रिसोर्सेज टेकन केयर ऑफ होते हैं. दैट इज़ नॉट अ जनरलाइजेशन, बट ऐसा देखा गया है. आई हैड फिगर्ड कि सर्वाइव करने के लिए कुछ एक तरीके इजाद करने पड़ेंगे, और वो तरीके इजाद करते 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 फाइनली वो इंटेलिजेंट कमर्शियल सिनेमा में मैं पहुंच गई, और वहां पहुंच गई तो आई फील कि अब ये घर है, ये स्पेस अब एक घर है.
Yeah, absolutely. From indie films to films like Chappak and the other ones that have taken you to Cannes, I think this is your home ground.
Cannes वाला फिल्म नहीं कह सकते कि वो घर चलाएगा, बट हाँ
यार ये राइटर्स और घर चलाने का क्या कौन,
क्योंकि घर तो सबको चलाना है ना.
Wow, I feel like calling Javed Saab right now.
वो आके आपको समझाएंगे. We need master classes, more such master classes on negotiating contracts, on negotiating monies,
self branding, negotiating, and just खुद ही को कर बुलंद इतना कि हर तकदीर से पहले. Okay, so you wrote Arya. I mean, we loved Arya's character, and the face was Arya's, but the character was written by some writers, right? You wrote Susmita, you and the fellow writers created Susmita, Arya on screen, and you created Deepika's character who defies all morose elements of life despite an acid attack, but they get all the accolades. A layman in Delhi walking in Lucknow somewhere else thinks that wow, Arya आपने कमाल कर दिया, but not many people know who created these characters. What is your relationship with the superstars whose careers you give a push to by writing brilliant characters? And how do they reciprocate? Do they reciprocate enough? Is there gratitude enough that comes back to you from them? What would you like?
For Alia Bhatt, I can say that she has also given a push back to my career. Gratitude से बहुत ज़्यादा मुझे उनके लिए gratitude है, because it's a professional relationship that started on that film, but it continues to this date, and I feel like it is we will end up doing a lot more work together. I hope that we will end up doing a lot more work together. She is now heading a production house, and she is trying to nurture particular kind of projects and films. Her production house is called Eternal Sunshine. उन्होंने पिछले साल Darlings नाम की film produce की थी.
Right.
So वो एक्टर होने के साथ साथ एक प्रोड्यूसर भी हैं और वो अब दुनिया को एक डिफरेंट नज़रिए से देख रही हैं एंड अ लॉट ऑफ विमेन टैलेंट.
I mean, as a matter of rule, I don't go on sets on shooting because I feel like it's director's territory and you've done whatever you had to do as a writer. But specifically, and I really was under the impression that nobody cares, like nobody remembers the names of the writers and they don't bother. I wake up and I realize that my inbox is filled with several notifications to Twitter. I'm not even active on Twitter. And then I realize it comes from the fact that Susmita has given me a shout out saying that, you know, so and so heartthrob of Arya, which is a huge compliment. I mean, it clearly goes on to say that we believe that nobody cares who's written those lines, but there is a lot of respect for the written words and what writers are bringing to table, and more I feel like it is changing, and writers are getting a lot of respect.
Yes, in the last 3 years, I don't feel starved of that kind of attention. Like I would say that I do feel like I do have a lot of B2B recognition, which is business to business, because I feel that while I may want to complain a lot about people not supporting us, I see the number of allies that I have in the industry, the number of people who actually want to promote me or help me or find a resourceful way for me to get ahead. And I will not just stop at actors. Of course, Deepika was like, I felt hugely supported by Deepika at the time. And I also think I've worked with many star directors, and I think I've had a great experience. I've been doing something with Hansal Mehta, and the kind of endorsement that I've experienced when I work with him, the kind of freedom that I have, it's at another level. So I've seen that actually some right people with right attitude do want to see you take your voice forward, because I feel we are all in that phase.
Okay, let's talk about your relationship with money. We all know that the producers take the lion's share, directors take the lion's shares, and there's this ugly amount of money that is given to superstars. While you mentioned in a conversation with me that the budget of the writers is probably 1% to 2% of a project.
That's if you're very, very lucky.
This is insane.
The standard should be 3 to 5%, which is what the standard is in Hollywood, I believe. But we are nowhere close to that. We have to remember that writers are the one. It's actually at the development stage where the maximum amount of hard work, love, passion, research, everything that goes into actually happens at the development stage.
So first tell the viewers how many writers are involved. Like for example, if you say 1% of the entire project, like for example 100 CR is the budget of a movie, you say that 1 to 2 CR is probably given to the entire team of writers.
Yeah, that's usually the standard. Sometimes it's even lower, much lower actually.
And that team has how many people?
It depends from, again, you know, project to project. Sometimes there are 2 people, sometimes it's 1 writer, sometimes there are 5 to 6 writers. And especially for long format content, because of the intensity of the work that is required, it's humanly not possible for one person to do that kind of work. So it's mostly consists of writers' room, which has junior writers, associate writers, researchers and senior writers. So there is a structure. While it is being said that it is getting more and more organized, I still feel that we have a long way to go, just in terms of making it more organized, wherein enough, enough care and respect is given to the development process, writing process, and that, I guess, is the only ambition that we have, or the only mission that we have as writers, to have some sort of an ecosystem where there is a standard for how development budgets are allocated, or how writers' rooms are structured, or how credits and monies are given.
Is there any kind of an arrangement, Ishita, where, I mean, the whole world is talking about royalty. Is there any kind of arrangement where you see the success of a film kind of giving back to the writers even after the film has been released, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line?
Abhi to hamara association, the Writers Association, is in talks with various producers, bodies, and this is something that even last month there was a big meeting and all the writers were talking about it in the association. This is something that it's an ongoing conversation. So hopefully in the future, sometime, there will be royalty. But as of now how it works is कि एक contract होता है, हम उसके tranches होते हैं, हम पहले से उस पर agree करते हैं कि हम इतने पैसे में ये फिल्म करेंगे, चाहे वो फिल्म बहुत बड़ी हिट हो या बहुत बड़ी फ्लॉप हो, ये इतना पैसा हमें मिल जाता है. तो एंड वो भी ऐसे होता है कि 50% of it mostly is given to you before the film and 50% of it once the film goes on floors. So this is roughly for a feature film, this is the way that the arrangement is. And a lot of times what happens is, like, there are many people that are doing films that are not getting made because every film that you write does not get made. But the most amount of work goes when you're doing the story and when you're writing the first screenplay dialogue draft. उसमें सबसे ज़्यादा मेहनत लगती है and उसके लिए आपको सबसे कम पैसे मिलते हैं और उसके बाद बहुत बार वो फिल्म वहीं पे अटक जाती है. तो आपने अपना सबसे ज़्यादा काम कर दिया होता है और उसके लिए आपको सबसे कम पैसे मिलते हैं एज अ राइटर. ये एक चीज़ होती है. ये बड़े प्रोडक्शन हाउसेस के साथ कम होती है क्योंकि वहाँ पे मतलब ज़्यादातर जो आप काम लिखते हैं वो इट डेफिनेटली सीज लाइट ऑफ डे. हो सकता है कुछ वक्त लगे या जो भी है, बट वहाँ पे होता है, वो बाहर आता है काम. बट इन स्मॉलर प्रोडक्शन हाउसेस मेनी टाइम्स लाइक 5 में या 6 में से एक जो आप लिखते हो वो ही बन पाता है.
How does the box office of a film affect the career of a writer?
I feel my career is a case in point that actually I feel that I am very, I feel very undercompensated for the amount of work that I've done in the industry. I really have 8 credits right now with 15 years of relentless work. I must have, like, I think easily 7, I think if there are 7 releases with different kinds of collaborations on it, I must have worked on maybe 17 to 20 projects. So anyway, that's an average. That's just not me something happening to me. It's a systemic thing that 60 to 70% of your work will fall through the cracks. Having said that, I just feel that I have brought in a lot of work, effort, experience to it, and I do think that not just that I am defined by my last box office success at times. I do feel also like I think it is also the nature of subject, because that is how I would like to at least analyze why my male peer gets better paid than I do while they have half my experience. And this is something I have very openly begrudged. I am extremely cognizant of the fact that my male peers do get better paid than I do, purely because even though I wanted to not actually question the merit of what they do, but I just the idea that, how they look at it is because business-wise it doesn't make sense for them to invest in writing to the extent of why will a producer put in more focus, for example, on a film which is about war. So because they will cast someone and the budget will be higher, and therefore it makes sense for them to pay their male writer more than me. And for me, my projects are basically, even before they begin, that it will only do this much business. So anyway, like, even I am a bit of a loser even before I begin, in the eyes of the people who are mounting these business plans.
Right.
And I feel somewhere at that, I do feel resentful that there is that kind of like pay disparity at work.
Filmmaking is a game of risk, and the writer is the first one to take that risk. So if you are mitigating your risk by just paying, say, 20% of the entire amount promised to the writer, then when the project sees the amount of success that you're expecting it to, the writer should also get that windfall. As simple as that. So that's the only way to, I think, make writing more lucrative. And I completely agree. In fact, to Atika's point, a lot of times I've also heard from, and it's across, it's not just for writers, that women are paid less also because they think that they are they're not the primary breadwinners of the family. They are bringing in what is known as the complementary, the secondary income to the family, which is not true. So that has to change, and that is more like a social and a systemic thing that...
Tell me, how do you nurture and nourish your soul when you're not working? I mean, the amount of content you generate from within yourself and put onto the paper, and then it finally goes onto the set, and then it ultimately reaches the society. And every movie is a different movie. Every script is a different script. Every song is a different song. Every story is a different story. But where do you get all those stories from?
I switch off and I spend time with my daughter and my husband and family and do things that have nothing to do with, you know, the film business. Read to her, play with her. I think it's very important to get perspective. हर चीज़ better work करती है जब आप उसे थोड़ी देर के लिए बंद कर देते हैं. तो ये हमें भी करना चाहिए अपने साथ. So that logging out is very very important. और जो आप कह रही हैं about newer stories and वो भी तभी होगा जब आप अपने film industry bubble के बाहर दूसरे लोगों से मिलेंगे.
Like you are a Bengali woman, right?
I am Bengali. My husband is Sindhi.
And for a long time, our box office commercial pot boilers were dominated by a Punjabi landscape.
Right.
Right. So it was so refreshing to see a contrast between a Punjabi household and the Bengali setting, and that is something that you could bring to the table.
मेरे लिए भी वही सबसे मजेदार था to be able to write about these two cultures that I've known very well, having spent a lot of my time in Delhi and Punjab growing up. But वो इसलिए है क्योंकि हम इन लोगों से मिले हैं रियल लाइफ में. It's not just based on some films that we have seen कि ऐसे होते होंगे क्योंकि हमने इस फिल्म में देखा है. So I think for real stories to come and to observe real people, you have to go out in the real world where people don't know anything about films and just consume it as entertainment.
Travel. Like every year I will travel to 2 new places and meet new people and make new friends and have conversations. I mean, I really have very strong roots. I'm very fortunate. I go back to Bihar and see people in real and talk to the women who are going through whatever they're going through on a very real basis.
Not really believing in the bubble that the industry is. I just unsubscribe a lot. I try to make friends or nourish relationships which are not with the industry peers. Because for me, I really feel that fostering different kinds of outlooks and having those perspectives around you as the noise is really important, because sometimes, and very consciously actually in the last few years, try not to mingle too much with film industry people.
Really?
For good or bad reason. Like I try, because I think it just like skews your perspective and you start feeling extremely excessively negative or excessively indulgent. And I just think that it kind of like really plays a very big role in how it kind of make me loses touch with reality. I like even now, like I nourish like my friendships with people who probably are historians or artists, or you know, they're from the media. But the quick thing to do it is that I actually spend as much time as I can alone and with my cats at home. I'm like a very big home person. For me, I mean, wherever I am, it's a rented apartment. Like to create an environment which is very nourishing. Like I think I hermit really well, and I read a lot. I read deeply. I live deeply, and I watch a lot, not for the sake of, I think those anyway are ways to nourish my head. I'm just generally a structure nut. Like I just love structures across any kinds of story. Like it could be a essay in New York Times. I just like to understand the structural placement of you know, dramatic beats, like anyway, just generally. So even in history is exactly that. And I at this stage, like it's a thing that has happened now in my mid-30s, but I've become fascinated with history. Like I want to read as much history as I can, and I feel that this was not there in me earlier, and something that I have developed now. So I just honestly think that I don't have the patience and time to spend so much with people, and I always want to return home to the books. Actually, when I went to South by Southwest, I hung out with Hugo Weaving for 2 evenings. And Hugo Weaving is Agent Smith from Matrix, and my entire like, you know, those early years when I was like a young person, and I thought Matrix was the story, like it was the story. And so to actually hang out with Hugo Weaving over 2 evenings, to see how grounded that guy is, and to see how erudite he was, to see how meticulous he was, and how passionate he is even at this age for storytelling, was such a beautiful experience. Because and that's not true for every star, but even while I work in the industry, I do feel I have met actors who are struck by their own celebritydom, and it was it is sometimes a fresh contrast to see someone who's so big on the map, and yet they are so grounded, and they're actually like, you know, earnest artists. So it was a very refreshing experience. But yeah, I hung out with Hugo Weaving, bro.
Bro, take us along next time when you go there.
We're just happy we're hanging out with you. We're so
We are in August.
celebrate the second degree of separation.
I can touch you.
Oh yeah, Atika, it's just yeah, I can
hanging
feel that. Yes.
Yeah,
But
who
it's
else
true,
have you
it's
hung
just-
out with? Give us drop a few cool names.
I don't know. I just met Sujay Sethupathi at a
What
Goa
you're
party.
saying?
At a Goa party, and he wasn't very keen on like the number of people had swarmed him for selfies, and he was like looking really impatient, and he walked away. And then I was like, oh my god, my turn did not come, and then I shouted, Super Deluxe, and he just turned. It was like I had like spoken the magic words. He just turned. He smiled at me. He was excited that somebody actually knew Super Deluxe. He actually took my phone, took a selfie, and I was like, oh my god, like, you know, so for me, it was like all my passion to good cinema finally paid off in me knowing the film that would make him turn.
Absolutely.
Make him turn. Oh God, Atika, you're too cool. And in the end, you know, this is famous, this is a nice quote said by Maya Angelou, and she says that there is no greater agony than bearing an untold story inside you. So what better closure to this discussion?
And we are on the celebrated Atika Farooqui show, and we have arrived. Our time is yet to come.
But apna time aayega.
Apna time aayega. There's this beautiful 4 lines. The heights by great men reached and kept were not attained by a sudden flight, but they, while their companions slept, were toiling upwards in the night. It is they who burn their midnight oil to give you crackling stories that make you sleep well, make you sleep better. So I think kudos to all of you. Thank you so much for making time to be here in the studios. I value this so much, and I think this is one of the most loveliest conversations that I've had in the last few months. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
so
for
much.
having us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.